Just wanted to start back kind of in reverse chronology here. Going back to the memorial service Friday, what kind of emotions or thoughts were going through your mind during this time?
Well, we were ready for closure. It was all about the kids. I mean, we really wanted to talk to the kids and let them know their mom and center around that and give them peace around it. And we definitely kept talking about her. We had a DVD video there that was beautiful. It relived her life. There's lots of pictures there. There's lots of things around there to remind them. Lots of friends, and even friends we didn't expect to see, we haven't seen in 10 years, showed up. And then I think for Jared, the most important part was his Boy Scout troop showed up. And it was absolutely wonderful for him to be there with that. For Lori, a lot of school teachers actually showed up. And she loves school. She loves Thrash Elementary School. So by them showing up, it was very important to her, too.
Kind of leads me into my next question. What have the last 8 months been like for you and your children?
It's been emotional for all of us. I think one of the things we planned on when this happened was we all got together and we set our goals. Our goals was to find Gail and to protect the children. They wouldn't feel protected through this whole thing. So that led to a lot of our different actions and so on.
How did you break the news to them as far as when that their mother was missing?
We sat down with them, talked about it. They understood there was a lot of emotions going on in the family. Their number one goal, again, was to find Gail. How do we find Mom? You know, we all hoped for the best. We always did throughout all 8 months. We'd say prayers about it. We just wanted to find where Mom went. And some of the common factors was maybe Mom's somewhere taking a break, relaxing, figure out what she wants. And that gave us a lot of comfort through the 8 months.
Have they had time to come to terms with losing their mother?
They have. We've sat down and talked about it. Through this whole thing, one of my goals was to be transparent with them. They're 9 and 12. They read the articles. They read everything. They can ask any question they want. I think one of the best things that happened was the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office detectives took them out to the brow and allowed them to ask any questions that they would like to. So they sat down with them, and Jared is a very intellectual kid. He had a lot of questions. I think both detectives did very well answering those questions for him and will in the future. So I think that brought a lot of understanding to them also.
When her Jeep was discovered, what was going through your mind at that time when they actually discovered the Jeep?
Well, I mean, when I got the phone call, it was like, oh my God, you know, if you think about the last 8 months, we were thinking a different line of thought. And it's like,
what do you mean a different line?
We thought Gail was off, you know, somewhere. That was some of the things we thought she did. She went off, things she was planning in advance to go away for a while for her stress levels, some of her depression. That's where we thought she was, and that's where we continue to look and follow up on leads throughout the entire event. So that was our whole line of thought. When they called about the Jeep, it was like, oh my gosh, and it brings you back to day one. So it's like, oh my gosh, for the last 8 months, you know, your line of thoughts, and you bring it back to day one, and then you start with it's just totally different. It starts everything all over again.
I wanted to go back to day one, or that week preceding April 30th.
Right.
You had, before her disappearance, of course, you guys had the pending divorce, and the police had been called twice out to your residence for arguments that had happened between the two of you guys and some disagreements there. What happened the following day?
Well, if you go back to the first police report, that was the day before Easter, it was Good Friday. I wasn't even at the house. This was, I mean, both of those reports, I wasn't even at the house. They were filed by Gail, by herself, if you actually read the reports. Wanted to go to the lake house. I want to take a separate car, give us time to talk on that Good Friday. So I wasn't even at the house when she filed the reports. We were going out where she was discussing whether I could take the Jeep or not. And she left, came back, went up the hill. I was not even there. So when she came back and talked to the police, they just wanted to know if I was all right. They talked about a cooling off period, and she went to the lake house, and I followed the next day.
And when you say you were not there, you're talking about on the
I wasn't even
29th.
I wasn't even at the house on the 20th of Good Friday. I was up the road a good bit. Didn't know the police were called. The police report was filed even before I even got back.
But you met with the police, right?
They stopped and asked me if everything's okay. I said everything's okay, but Gail was driving erratic, and I told her I want to get out of the car at the stop sign, and I did. And she drove back to the house and called the police.
What about the 30th? What you guys? What
On the
happened
30th, I came home early from the conference. I came home on the 30th. The alarms were changed. All the different codes were changed. I didn't know what was going on. Didn't know where my kids were. She said I had taken off with the kids before and not telling me. So I didn't know what was going on. Had no idea. I guess she drove by the house, and I didn't know where she was going, but I was trying to call her numerous times. Alarms were going off in the house, if you can imagine. And I got to the car and followed her up to where she was going, trying to beep, say, hey, I'm home. You know, Jared had an award ceremony that day if it wasn't for the tornadoes. And she pulled into the Signal Mountain Police Department. So that report was even filed at Signal Mountain Police Department, and we didn't even have words. She just said she didn't want to talk to us. She was worried about something, and she went back to the house. I stayed there per the request, and the police asked her to come back in 12 to 14 hours with the kids and just have a cooling off period.
What time of the day was it here at this point?
About 11:30.
On the 30th? Mm-hmm. What happened after that?
After that, we agreed. She went back to the house. The police has concern how long it was taking her there. We know she was moving some stuff out. And then came back up. Police asked me to go up to Pruitt's and wait. And I did as they requested. And she went down to the lake house with the kids. And I was in communication with them through text or via cell phone to make sure they were okay.
I'll make sure I understand this right. You said 11:30. You're talking about on the 29th?
29th.
Okay. On the 30th, on the Saturday.
On the Saturday, only communication she had, she called me and asked me where I was. Jared called me and said they're on their way back. I said, great, we're going to spend the weekend together. Like Gail and I agreed. That's Dad's weekend. Last weekend was Mom's weekend. And she called me. She came back, called me, asked me how long it was going to take for me to get up there. Got up there, and the kids were there. We were just talking. And there was no communication between Gail and I on the 30th.
Did you physically see her on the 30th?
No.
My understanding was from the sheriff, is it 12:15 you were at home?
I was at home, yes, sir.
And at noon, where were you at noon?
We stayed there the afternoon. We talked about what we were going to do, because the weekend before I didn't get to see him Monday.
I think he's asking you where were you at 12 o'clock?
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock, I was downtown. My mom ran some errands. We were at a boutique store down on the North Shore. And that's when we received the phone call saying, where were you? And I said, I'll be up there in about 20 minutes.
Because she was already at the house.
She was almost there or was there.
And she left the kids, is that right?
She left the kids. She said she was going out to make some phone calls to her cousin, Sherry. And that's what the kids told me. And that's when we sat there and called her to find out where she was, what she was planning on. And she's taken off to the lake house before from Louisville when we lived there, as well as living in Birmingham, and just kind of went there for her peace of mind. And that's where we thought she went. So we spent the day together after that.
When you didn't see her on that Saturday, how much time passed before you started becoming concerned, or when did you?
The kids and I texted her, said, you know, and there's been patterns of this before. So we hope you're okay, everything else. Find out what you're thinking. She said she was going to spend the weekend down there. And the kids were mine for the weekend. We were going to do baseball games, bike riding, and everything else. And I got a phone call Monday morning from her sister and Arlene saying, file a missing person, file a missing person. I'm like, why? She's at the lake house. And that's where she is.
This is Arlene Durham saying
Correct.
this? What did you think when Miss Durham said that?
I said, Arlene, Gail's down there. Nope, I've been following your lake. I'm like, why are you following what's going on at my lake house and stuff? You know, and she just started berating me that she knows and she's been over there. I'm like, why are you over at our house? You know, and So they filed. I said, okay, if you guys are that concerned, I'll go file it. So of course, I went right up the mountain about literally after an hour after that conversation to file a missing persons report with Officer Miranda.
Now, Gail's sister had already filed a missing persons report, is that right? I think it was May 2nd?
Correct.
Why did you wait to file the missing persons report after her sister?
Her sister didn't tell me. Her sister called me also. There was nothing telling me the missing person report has already been filed. So so I went up there, and as a surprise, Officer Miranda came over and told me it's already been filed. And I asked him some questions about that. At the same time, we know that there's a three-way call between her sister, Arlene Durham, and the neighbor trying to get her possessions back already. I thought that was odd. Here they're pushing to file a missing persons report, and they're worried about Gail's possessions being at different people's houses. That's when I began wondering what the heck's going on. I'm doing missing persons reports and stuff, and I did not know anything about her sister filing that report until Officer Miranda told me.
What did the results of this investigation mean to you?
It was a tragic accident. I mean, we're having marital issues. We're working through them, or trying to find out what the best things were for the kids. It's horrible. It's awful. It's like reliving another death, you know. I think all the law enforcement was doing their job all the way through. We were communicating with them. I think from day one, we hired the best people we could. I mean, that's what you do in my job. You go find the best people to go find and meet your objectives, and that's when we hired Mike Mathis and Lee Davis and Brian Haas, and kids and I talked to. It was like, let's go find them. So, I mean, that's where we're going with this all, is to get the best people on this that we can to find Gail. We searched Florida. I know I have cousins there. Everybody was giving us information that we're feeding all through Lee and there to give to the law enforcement. We searched New York. There's tips in Vermont. There's tips. We followed up on every lead we could, but we weren't going to go public with it. We were going to keep it private. I mean, this was a private issue that we were trying to handle.
Why did you make that decision to go private instead of public?
Talked to Gail's family. We all decided this was a private issue. We know Gail's had some issues in the past. We didn't want that out there. And we just said we're going to handle this privately. We thought we were all on the same page. If you look at the press conference that was handled at Signal Mountain, we were all asking Gail to come home. Unfortunately, it was, like I said, a tragic accident. And it hurts to this day.
Do the results of this accident, in your mind, do they vindicate you? Do you feel exonerated?
I don't think there's any... I wish we found it day one. I mean, there's no vindication. I'm not proud of anything. I mean, I'm glad it closure for me and the kids and stuff. The public, they're mean. I've learned a lot about what people can do to somebody's life, you know, and people that don't back you up, the people that, you know, even your work that you've done so well for, you know, that people jump to conclusions. There's assumptions out there. And the one thing we did was stick to our goals. What was our goals? It was to find Gail and protect the kids. And no matter what I did with protecting the kids, how many people scrutinized it, whatever. I mean, my kids are so proud of it all. I mean, they know who they can trust. They know who our true friends are now. And so vindicated, I never did anything. I've told that from day one to all the people. And so there's nothing to vindicate really for.
Is this a relief for you as far as the findings of the accident?
I don't know if it's a relief. If you really think about my psyche for the last 8 months, we thought Gail's off with friends or somebody and everything else. We believed that. I'll wait till they found the Jeep. Kids believe that. So I don't know if it's a relief. I think the law enforcement and Q and everybody brought in did an excellent job and everything. And I believe 100% what the findings are, even to some of my surprise, you know. So
you said Q.
Q's the Kevin, Gail's brother, helped sponsor that in, and we were supportive of it. He did it behind the scenes. Again, we kept our names out of Facebook and everything else. I didn't even know Kevin was behind it. They needed a sponsor, and he did a great job with bringing them in. That's the Missing Persons
Group from California.
group from I think South Carolina or California, but they're all over. So they did some nice work with the sheriff's office. All I asked for was constant communication between that group and the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and Sharon Harriman.
You were talking about the public can be mean. The suspicions, I mean, these were widely out there in the public. The criticism, even accusations toward you. How did that affect you?
It bothers you, but I have 2 small kids, and no matter what, it's like I'm a big boy, and I said I'll take it. Just don't hurt the children. And we didn't get proactive on some things until they started posting stuff about the kids. You know, whether the kids should be taken away or not taken away, and the lawsuits and everything else. And that's when we got proactive, because it got away from our goals of protecting these kids from everything. I mean, one's in elementary school and one's in middle school, so they're going to hear things, and that's why I always said let's be transparent with them. They've read their articles, they've read the filings, they completely understand what's going on. So
You're talking about they read the articles. Did you ever fear that your children would be exposed to this? I mean, in the media, it was all in the media. It was
we protected them from the media. We were quite clear from the media and the schools. The schools were fantastic. Principal Randolph and Principal McCullough were great. We had a clear, if they saw something that was out of the ordinary, to call me. I'd be down there immediately to talk to them. We had them proper counseling all the way through the whole thing. And so that's what we did, is protect those 2 kids.
Did you ever have any fear that, particularly Jared, since he was older, they might believe some of these things were going about, the suspicion that you were involved in some way?
Yeah, we've talked about it. They never believed it. Their biggest concern was they were scared of some of the people on the internet. Arlene Durham especially. I mean, that's why we filed the harassment charge against her when she got too close to our kids. You know, she was frustrated. She wanted to know stuff. She started going towards our kids, and the kids are scared to death of her to this day. So I wasn't concerned, because our kids and I have a great relationship, and they'd come to me all the time. We'd sit down. They'd literally get upset and call the newspapers liars, call the news liars, because they know some of the true facts that were out there.
What for you was your personal low point?
I think when I had to tell my kids that I no longer have a job. I mean, they always knew Dad takes care of them, and they were worried, and they were scared. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
How do you see life moving forward for you and your children?
Well, we've sat down and talked a lot. They've laid out some of where they want to be. I mean, they love some of the people up there in the community. Some people in the community, very silent people, have always been there for us. Picked up the kids when I couldn't be there, or took them to their house, and really wrapped their arms around them up there in the community and stuff. So we're working forward on that. We're not sure where we're going to stay right now. I've set goals with them, and you know, January, February, and March are going to be a big time for us to sit down, and it's a good time for them to sit back and say, what do you really want? What do you really want to do? So I think over the next few months we'll be trying to figure out what we actually want to do. Like I said, I told you about the Boy Scouts before. The Boy Scouts up there, that troop's been phenomenal for Jared, and so have certain people up there.
What about
for Lori?
I'm sorry. What about your relationship with Gail's family? How is it now? I mean, did it change it?
Yeah, some things have changed. We're still working through some issues. I hope they find some comfort in the report, what actually happened. We've always reached out to them. They always haven't not accepted that, which is understandable. They lost a sister. We've always been close. I've always been close with the family. Some of the family has come to me and really supportive. Some people have been completely silent, and other people just don't say nothing. I think they could have been more supportive through this to tell what kind of person I really am, instead of people reading or not reading the whole story on news reports or police reports and so on. Because they've known me for 14 years, and probably 17 years. We were 3 years before we even got married.
Did you feel like they had some suspicions?
They, at first, Arlene was driving a lot of suspicions that were unfounded to everybody. And unfortunately, you can't always defend yourself, because if you say something, it's either going to be taken one way or the other. And we chose as a family and to remain silent and to keep the focus on finding Gail. And it's like that was the whole goal. It's like, unless they came and started doing something to the kids or something detrimental, we were going to stay silent, and we were going to have the best people on this and support law enforcement and everybody else on finding Gail.
What was your relationship before Gail went missing, as far as with Arlene Durham?
Arlene's not Gail's best friend. She's not. I mean, they print that over and over again. Media outlets have had communication from both sides of the family explaining that she's not a spokesperson for us, for Gail's side of the family, or my side of the family. We have asked them not to print stuff. That's not true. If you go back and take all the radio interviews and stuff, now that we know the outcome of the event, they're lies. They're lies to stir up stuff and to hurt me, and which ended up not just hurting me, it ended up hurting the kids. So the relationship's never been good. She's been a caretaker of our houses. She's done odd jobs for us, but beyond that, yeah, we go over and visit her little farm with the kids. But beyond that, she's not. We know who Gail's best friends are. We contacted them early. One lives in California, one lives in Ohio, and a couple live in Buffalo, New York. And those are Gail's true best friends.
Do you feel like you were slandered?
I think so. I think people took things out of context. I think things, they're definitely untrue. That I'm not that kind of person. I've never abused Gail. I've never verbally abused Gail. Only one person has come out and said that. The kids know the truth, and I know the truth, and that's what we stuck by through the whole thing.
How hard has it been to live on Signal Mountain with all of the things that were going on?
You're more vigilant. I won't say it's hard. There are some tremendous people up there. And those people just ask not to be brought into the Facebook stuff, the things that were going on, the slanderous stuff. I got personal phone calls that says, "We're there for you. What do you need us to do for the kids?" I mean, I've had people that took Jared on a canoeing trip several weeks after, said, "I will make sure he's by my side every second of this trip, and you don't have to worry about it. That's what he needs." Then I have other people that just ran and hided and then aided to some of this stuff. So you had both things, but we try to stay above that. I mean, the kids wanted their friends up there.
Do you feel like people were staring at you or judging you with all the innuendo that was out there?
I don't. They might have been, but it really didn't bother me because, again, if you stick to the goals of what we talked about, it's like it doesn't really matter. Let's find Gail. You know, and I wish we didn't get so distracted over some of this stuff that was being said. Maybe did some more of the other stuff, researching and walking and thinking about it that's out there, you know.
After the Jeep was discovered and the investigation was leaning towards an accident at that point, Clive Bonnick, who had been critical of you and had some innuendo from his own part there, he apologized directly to you. Did you see that or hear it?
I saw it a few days later. One of the things I stayed away from was the news a little bit, and the newspapers. And my family, when we sat down and talked about whose role was to look at that stuff, they'd contact me or the team we put together to look at some of those things, because there might have been some clues in there. You know, a lot of things Arlene said or whatever, there might have been some clues to where Gail went. But with Clive, I've known Clive. We coached soccer together. He coached the girls' team. I coached the boys' team for the spring leagues up there. And I think Clive was just looking. I'm not sure where Clive was going with some of the things that he was saying, and I think it was some of the frustration on his part. But that's up to Clive and not to me to figure out what he was thinking.
Clive did not know Gail, did he, or did he?
Clive met Gail in April. My soccer team played his soccer team. Gail was across the field. The kids remember it. I remember it. I introduced Gail to Clive around April of 2010, if I believe.
What did you think about his apology?
I'm glad he apologized. He stepped back from that apology already. But I mean, that's up to him. He has to figure out what he's thinking and find closure on his own. My thing is to protect my kids away from some of that stuff.
Do you think other people owe you an apology?
I don't need one. If they have them, they can. I think the big apologies really need to go to my kids and some of the stuff that they've had to put up with. I mean, let's face it, people post things on Facebook. Teenagers get to read it. Elementary schools now, kids get to read it. And that's the stuff that gets back to your kids, and that's why we've been so transparent with them. And their comments, and several people's comments, get back to the kids. And that's what people have to remember through this whole thing.
Clive had said this, and others did. They wanted to know why you didn't participate in the searches.
Well, because some of the things at the beginning, when the Signal Mountain Police Force was making some innuendos towards me and saying, you know, you're guilty of something, I didn't know what to actually do, and that's what brought on bringing this team together with attorneys and everything. And I did not want the searches to become about me. We supported things on the backside. We had, you know, I asked Lee Davis, I said, who's the best person to go find Gail? Who knows these mountains? Who's been here the longest? And that's where Mike Mathis and his team came in to go look. We had people searching. What I could do was look through things, find things, go through books, find anything we can to turn over to give any inclination of what was going through Gail's mind or where she might have gone. And so we were working that side as a private matter. And to go walk through the woods, I'm glad people were doing it. I knew they were doing it. To have myself do it for several hours, it might have looked good, but I could spend several hours going through yearbooks and finding best friends and looking through some of our documents to say, is there something there that we can turn over to law enforcement to give these detectives a helping hand on seeing where she was and follow up on. We were, quite frankly, following up on all the different leads.
What would you say to those who were, you know, around the dinner table, and some even publicly believe you had something to do with it?
They're wrong. We've said that from day one. I never had anything to do with it. It's not within me to do something like that. People that know me, if people actually asked the people that know me, whether it's on Gail's side of the family or my side of the family or my best friends and even some of Gail's best friends, if you took all these rumors and put them aside, people knew that I had nothing to do with Gail's disappearance. And it's like, so I would just tell them, go back and if they need to have closure and stuff, look back at what's fact versus rumor.
Speaking about fact versus rumor, I wanted to go back, kind of circle back to this accident report. What do you think that will say to the public when it becomes public?
I think it will say it's a tragic accident. I think based on the science behind it and the thorough job that the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and all the experts, I mean, they talked to me about every expert they contacted. It's just not their experts, it's every expert. That was a tragic accident that happened on a day. And hopefully the public will come to some closure around it, to say this was a tragic accident. Things do happen tragically, and it's sad for me, it's sad for the family, it's sad for Gail's family, it's sad for the community out there.
There was a divide between what's been out there in the public sphere versus what you knew privately. Does it make you feel any better to do this interview to get some of this out?
It makes me feel better. I want people to know about the kids and, you know, and what we were thinking. I mean, the kids were part of the discussion on what we were going to release and not release. They were part of the discussion whether I was going to get in front of the media or not in front of the media. I mean, they said, Dad, you need to go out in front of the media. I would have gone out in front of the media. We all talked privately, and like I said, they're smart little kids.
Hey man, let me tell you something. If a kid said that, you wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I would have let you.
Okay. Yeah, okay. You can take that out, but okay. Lee would have never let me out there in front of the media. Take that out. But I mean, it was really about the kids. It was really about the kids, and to see so much that was hurtful out there, no matter what I said publicly, it was going to be twisted, and that would just confuse the kids. So I was better off talking with them privately than I was, you know, anytime publicly.
The last question I had is not a question. I mean, if there's something that you want to say, that you want to interject, I'll just open it up.
Well, I just hope the media channels and stuff just really look at it and base themselves on facts and stuff in the future, and not listen to a single source, not listen to one person that's out there. And if they are going to, do a background check. Check out who these people actually are. Don't bury the facts, as we know they have on some things. Don't spend a lot of time, doing research and then only come out with the research that says, look towards one area or make an assumption. So I really hope they learn some lessons, and I think even the Times Free Press article that came out today about how they're changing their blogging and their policies and stuff, and who can actually post on stories now because of the things that have happened to me with my job and with the kids reading that stuff. I hope people really take a self-reflection over this.
I'd asked you before if you thought you were slandered. Do you plan to take any action?
I'm not sure at this time. Our goals are we're still with the tragic accident. Like I said, it's like you go back 7 months, 8 months, and you're thinking one thing, and now we're still in the stages of, wow, what can we do best to memorialize Gail right now? What's the best thing we can actually do? So we haven't even got to that stage yet. It's more about talking to the kids and find out what their future wants. And to your previous question, that's the important thing.